Welcome to Soulful. Whether you're navigating challenges or celebrating victories,
We're here to remind you that every step on your path is meaningful. I'm Tiff.
and I'm Jess.
So let's clear our mind as we fill our soul.
So, hi everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Soulful. I'm Jess, and as always, I'm here with Tiff.
Hi, everyone.
Um, and yeah, what a beautiful day it is to have a beautiful day. I was thinking about that this morning as I was getting dressed, actually. Just such a beautiful day to have a beautiful day. I say that often, actually, like in my day-to-day life. Usually in the mornings is kind of like one of the things I affirm my day with. And I say it so often, actually, that an old coworker of mine had a shirt custom made that says it's a beautiful day to have a beautiful day for me. And yeah, it's just really thoughtful. So that's what I decided to wear today. And then I thought about it, I was like, I'm not sure if I've ever shared that on here before. So yeah, just happy to bring, I guess, that piece of me here today in this space. Um, so yeah, I know, Tiff, that it hasn't been like really that long at all since we've since we've caught up and had like lots of big catch up things to do on here. But maybe for today, yeah, I'd just like to ask you what is beautiful about your day today?
Good question. You know what? It's a blustery, snowy day out there today. And
Mm,
I don't love winter, but I have to say that being hunkered down inside in the cozy factor of when it's really blustery outside, I don't know, feel grateful for the warmth and the toastiness and just like yeah, watching the elements do as they do. So yeah, it's quite blustery. I wouldn't
yeah.
call it a storm, but the Weather Network did. But it's coming from Newfoundland. This is not a storm.
I feel like that's fair. Leave it to Newfoundland Labrador's weather to really um I don't know the word I'm looking for, but really we just have a different expectation or different, yeah, weather expectations.
Yeah, I literally said out loud this morning, I was like, sometimes I'm a little ashamed to be an Ontarian these days because like it's a winter storm warning and like everyone's hunkered down and preparing for it. And I'm like, lived in St. John's for a long time. And I remember one distinct storm where I was home alone in our apartment and a lot of stuff happened in that storm. We got so much snow, but my car entirely was buried in the driveway. You couldn't see it.
Yeah.
It was totally gone when I got up. We couldn't even get out the front door. It was over halfway up the door. So while we waited to get some snow clearing help, young girls in university, I would literally have to throw my backpack up over the
Oh my
snowbank of my front door and slide out to the road.
like jump over like the like, so funny.
Yep. Yeah, it was so that's a storm.
Yeah.
That's a storm.
Yeah, agreed. Um, yeah, I remember in Labrador, like when living home in Labrador, like having when we would get a lot of snow, we would actually like not be because it would take like a long time for like plows to get to us because like just there's so much snow, right? And
Yeah.
plows weren't stationed in like our community, so they would have to come from elsewhere. And so sometimes it would take like days really like for us to and so we would just use skidoos. We would just like have to drive on the road in skidoos. And then even though like that's like made for the snow, um it would like yeah be getting stuck in like the
Of
drift
course.
banks or like on the
Yeah.
road, which is just insane. But I also have a picture, like my dad worked on as a heavy equipment operator for a long time on the road, and I have a picture of like I wouldn't know the year now, but it was obviously a really long time ago. I don't know if you know what like a commercial like equipment like a blower, a snow blower looks like.
Yeah.
It's like this,
Yep.
yeah, like a dump truck, like it's huge, right?
Yep.
And like the snow on the road from like my hometown to like the bigger place or whatever, was like I think 70 kilometers. The road, like the snow on the side of the road is the same height as that blower. Like I don't even know how you anyway, it's just insane. It's
Crazy.
crazy.
Yep.
It's just crazy.
Yep.
Good old winter.
Yeah, it hits different out east.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah, and here like it gets really cold. We do have a lot of snow this winter, I will say.
Yeah, us too.
But yeah, it just gets cold, like it's kind of less of snow and more like really just cold all the time.
Frigid, actually. Your
Yeah.
temperatures are frigid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, what is beautiful in my day today? I'm going to say two things. There's really two things that's beautiful. And the first thing is I went for a coffee today at Starbucks.
Okay.
And I don't drink caffeine, so I always do get a decaf, but I still love the taste of it. So I did get a coffee at Starbucks today and it was on a gift card, so basically free. And Nova. Nova is the other beautiful thing in my day today. I was like cuddling with her last night. This is maybe why I was like, I don't really want her to move today out of the room because she's in the sunshine. I know you guys can't see her, but anyway, she's bathing in the sun as we do this episode. Um, but she's getting so old, like her face is like getting so gray. And last night as I was like cuddling her, I was like, oh, and she's a rescue and I just like think about how she's just really happy to be here. Like she's just always really happy. Like, and even regardless, I guess, of what maybe her previous life looked like, she just sees like beauty in the life that she has now. And she's so
Hmm.
cute. And anyways, so for those of you who don't know, I am a crazy dog, a crazy dog mom. I talk about Nova as if she is my child that I birthed.
Deep
Um,
love.
it's
I just have a curious question. Have you ever gotten, I don't know too much about them, but Nova a pup cup? Because you mentioned you
yeah,
went to Starbucks. Okay.
yeah, yeah, always, every time. It's like,
Okay.
yeah, we can't go to Starbucks without getting her a pup cup. And she has to go for vaccinations actually next month, and I'm going to be away for work. And so I said to my partner who's going to bring her there, I was like, remember, you have to go and get her a pup cup when she goes to the vet. He's like, I will do that.
Okay. Okay. That's very sweet.
Oh man. Anyways, okay, so yeah, let's jump into it. So I've been waiting, I guess, to kind of yeah, dip into this topic for a while. And I'm not really sure exactly, I guess, what the title will be or yeah, what we're gonna call it yet. But what I'm hoping is that we can share some thoughts, I guess, around expectations or navigating expectations, balancing expectations, reframing expectations. I'm not sure, but um, just how sometimes we might try to play puppet master, I guess, and have things play out exactly the way that they should.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess for me, like this is a place where I feel like I have done a lot of work, like but I also know that I have like a lot more to do. And I'm really guilty of actually holding expectations in my mind and then like not always communicating them,
Hmm.
as well as communicating them and then being told like no, like that's not the way things can be. It's not the way things are going to be. It's not the way things I want them to be. But then I really just try to manipulate the situation to meet my
Amen.
expectations. Anyways, just regardless of that. And so I have thought a lot about why, I guess, like why am I always really keen to do that instead of just, yeah, accepting that um, it might turn out different than I had hoped, or even accepting that, you know, a person can't be who I think that they should be or that I want them to be, right? And
Hmm.
so the last episode that I guess I kind of like led or planned a little bit was that one about chaos. And so side note, if you haven't checked out that episode, it's episode 7. But this theme of managing expectations, I think like it came from that for me. So
Hmm.
I feel like it's in the same realm, I guess, and they have some commonalities or, um, yeah, just tied to each other. So I guess to say that, like, I feel like I really am in a season of like managing expectations or navigating expectations through this really chaotic time, and maybe just trying to find some clarity in that. So I, yeah, I believe that managing our expectations is crucial to our wellness, and
Yeah.
our growth too, I think, right? Like, we have so many expectations of ourselves, other people, our jobs, our pets, who I expect her to not bark right now as I do this, but our kids, and the
Yep.
list just really goes on, right? And so it's like, how do expectations, I guess, fit within a growth mindset?
Hmm.
And I don't know, like I've thought about that lots. Like, do I see it align? Like, do I see it fit? Like, I'm not sure. Like, and I don't know if there's like a yes or no answer, but I've just really thought about that a lot. And sometimes I think that I think that expectations put us more in a fixed mindset
Yeah.
versus a growth mindset, maybe. And the way, like, thinking about things the way that we expect that they should be, or the way that we want them to be. And so yeah, I think we can, um I think it's natural for us to like want things to go a certain way, I guess, right? Like,
Of course.
we've thought about how we want our lives to look, we've thought about what we want our relationships, or how we want our relationships to make us feel. But like, what happens when none of that comes true?
Yeah.
When nothing comes to plan for us, like, I guess, right, or goes to the plan that we had. And so yeah, that is something that continues to be difficult for me. So, and I know we've talked lots about this before, around managing expectations, or accepting, or however we want to phrase it. But I guess to start us off, like, yeah, just like be curious to hear, or to hear you share, I guess, whatever's on your mind as you hear that managing expectations, and maybe what your experience has been with it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, yes, thank you. I think you touched on something, the fixed mindset. I think when I have unhealthy levels of expectations, because I think there is a place where expectations, they don't stifle and add all this internalized pressure.
Mm.
But yeah, when it gets to this place where I'm, like you said, puppet master, that really, really stood out to me and want to manipulate an outcome. Because in that episode 7, I talked a little bit about how much I love control because it provides me this sense of safety, right? Um, so yeah, when I'm really tunneled in, I think, like when I'm really tunneled in, it can only be this one way. All that is available to me is frustration and disappointment and letdown because I'm not allowing myself to see the bigger picture of what might be transpiring outside of like, it has to be this way. It needs to work out like this. Like, basically, I think in a very dramatic way underneath it is I won't survive if it doesn't go out this way. And I know that that's like sounds dramatic, but sometimes my nervous system feels that way. So depending on the importance of it for me. Um, and I was chatting with somebody about expectations, and the word that she used first was, she was like, I don't think expectations can pivot. And then we came back to it. And she's like, no, I think they can pivot, but sometimes it got to come from a place of like, I'm so frustrated. And so I get to this place and it's like, well, I have no choice but let go and surrender this now. And then I can pivot. So I just thought that was an interesting word too when thinking about it. It's like, because when we're healthily striving for things, we're more flexible. We're more able to pivot. We're more able to see the growth opportunities and not be in this one lane. Um, but also, kind of what comes up for me is also a lot of my expectations are the ones I have on myself. So I don't know if we'll get into that later, but that is something that, yeah, my recovering perfectionistic side really is challenged with. So yeah,
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I think you're right. Like, I think internal pressures and external pressures both, like, I think it really plays into this. And um yeah, it's interesting to hear you kind of like, we were like kind of say something and we were like loop back to it, right? Like, to be like, okay, let's like revisit that. And I think with expectations specifically, I did that. Like, I still do that a lot, right? It's like, is this about what's happening, or is this about my like emotional experience with what's
Mm,
happening, right? Um and so yeah, like and to go back to what you said, like I also think that expectations can be a good thing, right? Like
yeah.
maybe I'll start there. And actually, so I remember a few years ago, actually it was around the time when I moved here. So the first person I kind of like met and established a connection with, we talked about this expectation thing. And as we were talking, I kind of said, I'm not sure if I hold people to expectations, but I hold them to standards.
Hmm.
And that person was like, well, like, what does that mean? And I thought about it and I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It just is. And it didn't, I don't know why I said it. I just pulled it out of my, you know what. Um, but so I didn't take time to think about it until like a really long time ago. But I was reflecting on that last night as I was kind of thinking of like what I guess I'm hoping to get from this conversation, or some of like the places that we could have went with it. And um yeah, so I was reminded of it. And before I guess I really dive deep into it, because I've had an opportunity to reflect on it, I'd like to ask you, like, I'd love like to hear your thoughts about that. Like, are standards the same as expectations? Or like if not, how do you like see them differently?
Yeah. Okay. Standards versus expectations. Yes. I'm just laughing though. You're pulling it from you know where. That's what my son says too. He's like, I don't know. He said, I say all these things and I feel like I sound really smart. And then after I'm like, what did that even mean?
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah. That was one of his most recent reflections. But I think standards, I mean, I haven't put any thought into this question before. So again, I'm just going to roll with what's coming up for me. But expectations is kind of feels like okay, and I'm giving myself permission to change my mind about this because this is just how I feel in this moment.
For
But
sure, yeah.
expectations, I feel like I'm expecting something from somebody else. So like it's like almost like giving away if I have expectations in relationships or with my job or something that's external to myself, as an example. Um yeah, if I am expecting someone else or something else to be a certain way than what it is. I mean, that's kind of silly in the first place, but anyway, we do it. I do it.
Hmm.
But standards are
All the
something,
time.
right? Right. But standards feel like what I'm willing to tolerate, whether that's from myself or from
Mhm.
other people. And so that says you get to be you. You get to be whoever you are. That job gets to be whatever it is, that whatever it is gets to be what it is. But that means I might take a course of action that steers me away from that or make I because it doesn't align for me. Yeah, I don't know if that's clear, but that's just kind of what comes up in the difference for me in this moment, in this precise moment of time. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what you were thinking about.
Yeah, like, and I think it's really interesting to hear because yeah, and I've had some time to like think about that. Like I said, that was years ago when I hauled it out of you know where. And then until like last night when I was like, oh, wait a second, I'm gonna talk about expectation. And I remember saying this before, and I'm gonna revisit that.
Hmm.
And so but it's funny because some of the things that you excuse me, you said kind of like is some of my like same thoughts as well. So like for me, I guess I see standards as something specific, right? Like when I think about standards, I guess it's more measurable for me. So
Okay.
how I differentiated that for myself was like, okay, in my friendships, for example, a standard in my friendship maybe could be like that for us, like you and I, we make an agreement. I don't know that if one of us have planned to do something and one of us has to cancel, and I'm not talking like, someone's sick, someone's dying or whatever, like, extremes, but like the agreement is that if we have plans and one of us can't make it, we're going to give each other 24 hours of notice, for
Okay.
example. Like it's like a rule, right? Like it's a clear, like really clear, like set, defined thing where it's like, if I can't make it, I'm going to tell Tiff within 24 hours. And so the expectation then could be like, maybe I expect you to make time to hang out regularly, like I feel that our friendship is stronger when we spend more time together regularly. I expect you to prioritize our hangouts. So the expectation is like something I want to happen, but it's not like a rule of like we need to hang out 3 times a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and obviously it's going to ebb and flow. Like it's going to depend on a lot of things like schedules, life, all of these things that happen. And so when I think about expectations, I guess I go to like the word that really comes up for me, I think, is like hope.
Okay.
Like I hope something will happen this way. Um and unlike standards maybe being more, I'm not sure the word, like I don't know if it's like objective, like I used measurable before, but like objective, and maybe expectations are more like subjective where it's gonna, yeah, it depends on lots of like different factors maybe. So yeah, so anyway, so I
Yeah.
guess I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I'm not sure if that was a good example. But anyway, so after her, like I did some thinking, I guess, about that and processed it in some ways and understood it in a way that made sense to me, at least.
Yeah.
Like that's, I kind of got thinking like if expectations are subjective and it's supposed to be more flexible or fluid, then like why is it so flippin' hard to accept when our expectations aren't met, right? Like
Hmm.
in any regard, it's like if I go to start my car expecting it to run because and it doesn't because it's like friggin' minus 40, right? And it doesn't,
Yep.
that's annoying, right? And now I can't get to, the volunteer thing that I was on my way to, and somebody was expecting me to show up there, and it's completely out of my control, right? Like I couldn't have predicted that my car wasn't going to start. I guess I mean I could have had maybe an inkling and could have took some steps to prepare for that, but like yeah. So, but it's really hard to like fully prepare for like every circumstance or every situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my point is that we're always kind of holding people and things to expectations, and we do have like zero control over if it goes the way that we thought it would,
Yep.
or if this person treats us the way that we expected them to. And so, like, what then? Like, where does that leave us? I mean, I know, I know where it leaves me, but like really
Hmm.
how yeah, I said I know where it leaves me, and I guess it leaves me with like the only thing I can do, and that's how I am able to manage my reactions, and not always in a good way, right? Like it's not always going to be like, oh, this is, I feel good with this change in my expectation. um but I think again that might be where it comes back to standards versus expectation, right? Like
Hmm.
the standard is I will be respected. The expectation is that I expect you to treat me that way, but if you don't, there could be like a boundary or a repercussion or something
Right.
like of that, right? And so, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I kind of like like all of that. I guess I'm just interested to hear like your thoughts on like why it is hard for us to let go of expectations or to yeah accept, I guess, that things won't be as we thought they would be.
Well, yeah. I mean, I liked your example. I was thinking about when you're talking about standards or expectations, I was thinking about a workplace, right? Like a workplace can have a standard. Like if you need to call in sick, you need to call in sick
Mm,
X amount of time in advance. But I think about COVID and how blurry the lines got for people. And then the workplace expectations became so high on people because it's like, well, you're always home. And, you know,
mm,
and just how some of that blurred together in that time. So I did feel like I followed your example there in that that you were giving. And yeah, reminded me of a personal example of working in COVID. So yeah. But I don't think there's a straight linear answer to that question that you asked of
mm,
like, why is it so hard to let go? What comes top of mind is avoiding emotional reactions or feelings within ourselves that it brings up. confronting a reality that we don't want to look at, or so stay in a place of denial. Um, what else? Um, Yeah, I'm just trying to think and just really grappling with the fear of uncertainty because if things don't go the way we expect, we're in a place where now it's not known. So we don't have that control. We don't have that sense of safety. I mean, it's a very false, well, maybe it's not a false sense of safety. I don't know, but it's a false sense of control. It's an illusion, right? So, um, yeah, those are the top three things that come to mind. I'm sure there's more, but yeah, I think like if I think back to myself, yeah, like as an example, if I was expecting something to go a certain way and I end up quote unquote failing, which, failing gets a bad rep, but it's a beautiful outcome a lot of the time of choice for learning. Um, yeah, I might not want to sit with the feelings that come with that failure. I might feel ashamed. I might feel embarrassed. I may be disappointed in myself. And so if I can hold on to this picture of what I've expected, then I don't have to sit with that. So yeah, I think those are the biggest things that are jumping out at me right now.
Yeah, there was like a lot of good stuff that you said. And yeah, I was like, I jotted down a couple things because I'll just never remember the things. But one of the things that did pop out the most to me was denial, right?
Mm,
Of like denial of like, this is not going the way that I expected it to. And like, that sucks. And then if it sucks, it's like, well, who's to blame? And how do I
right.
sit with like this uncomfortableness of like, whose fault is this? And also, is it my fault? And like, so I think yeah, I think denial is a huge, yeah, I think denial is like a huge factor, I guess,
Mm,
in kind of managing our expectations because we don't want to admit that our life isn't the way that we thought it would be, or that
yes.
our situation is not the same as what we expected it to be. And yeah, I know we talked about this earlier, so I think maybe we could loop back to the internal versus external pressures, like on ourselves too, right? Like, and I think it's easy to get caught up in comparison. So, like, you know, we see relationships that have qualities that maybe like we want for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Or the way that like someone's beautiful home always looks so aesthetically pleasing on like Instagram. And that's like the only parts that we absorb, right? And whether or not, I don't believe that's our intention. That's like, I want my house to look like that. I want all of the things like this person has. So then I'll be like happy, or I'll be like, yeah, like I don't think we set out for that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think what it does sometimes is set up these unrealistic expectations. And maybe, yeah, like I said, unconsciously, I don't know, but yeah, I do think that comparisons play a huge role in internal and external pressures that tie into the expectations that we have. And it's interesting because a lot of the things I read and self-help books and all of this, they all say like let go of your expectations. Like it's not good to expect things. And I think that's why I did have to reframe it as like standard versus expectations. But maybe to go back to, yeah, that like half that I had earlier, like I do think expectations can be good. Like
Yeah.
I think that they help provide us like with some clarity on what it is that we want from a relationship or a situation. Like if used right, also I think that expectations can be a way to, like I mentioned, establish some boundaries, and also motivate us too. Like if I'm expected to maintain a certain level of performance at work, like you mentioned, if it's like healthy, right? Like it's like it gives me something to work towards, right? And I'm going to want to do my best to work towards that. And so I know that there are times when expectations can also be problematic.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned earlier, if they're not communicated, I don't know what that word is, but if they're not communicated clearly, and as I say that, I guess I kind of do reflect on a specific moment where I didn't want to communicate what I expected a situation to look like because honestly, it was really selfish.
Hmm.
Like it was really selfish. And so instead of like saying what I wanted to happen, I just tried to, yeah, manipulate it and hope that it would work out that way anyway, right? And ultimately, what did that lead to? Like disappointment. Like,
Yeah.
and not to always go back to like my girl Brene, she would probably grimace if she if I say that, call her my girl. But anyway, I just really love her work, to be honest. I love the way
Yeah,
she
me
presents
too.
things. I love the things that she talks about and her experiences. And anyway, so whether or not she likes it, I consider her my girl.
Yeah, ditto.
But but in her book, Atlas of the Heart, she actually defines disappointment
Yes.
as unmet expectations. And she goes on to give this example of like her and her husband who go into a weekend and they have like all these expectations for how much they would get done, the things that they would do. And when the expectations, I guess, were uncommunicated and then unmet, it always led to like fighting or
Yes.
bickering, or someone was like upset about this or whatever, right? And I think the more significant the expectation, I think the more significant the disappointment, right? Like
Mm,
where it's like we really have an expectation of like what something needs to look like. You mentioned like it sounds dramatic, but I think we do have a response to that, right? And
yeah.
so that response comes to like a really significant amount of disappointment, I think. And um, but then anyway, she goes on to say like when these expectations were communicated and really thoroughly like planned, right? Like they became, I guess, more like realistic, or I don't know, like attainable or sustainable, I don't know, whatever. But and bonus, no bickering, I guess.
Or
But I
less.
guess like yeah, but I guess like yeah, as I anyway, I feel like I kind of jumped all over the place again. But as I kind of say that, I guess I wanted to ask you like more on this internal, yeah, because I started there, internal and external pressures, like how um yeah, just share a little bit more about how they could affect, I guess, our expectations.
Yeah. Well, I would like to just like jump back when you were talking about there was like a couple things that jumped out at me and like how you were talking about healthy expectations or expectations at work that feel healthy. Yeah, the word that came up for me when you're talking about that was guide. They guide us.
Mm.
They guide us. And if they feel right for us and they don't feel like something that's unmanageable or needing a boundary or whatever, they help us yeah, find our path with that and how we want to show up. So I do really think expectations have a place. Um, and if we're good at listening to ourselves, which for me ebbs and flows, but listening to ourselves and what feels good for us, like yeah, it can be supportive of that. But the other thing you mentioned, I just wanted to give a deeper shout out to Atlas of the Heart. If you have not read it, or I mean, it's not something for me that I sit down and I read chapter to chapter, or like emotion to emotion. It's like such a great tool to, like you said, you mentioned disappointment and like to go deeper into things that we feel.
Mm.
Big fan of that book. I've read it cover to cover more than once. But anyway, so Atlas of the Heart, if you haven't looked at it, great resource and tool.
Maybe
Uh,
like I don't know if Bernie's like marketing people are like listening, like we're like her cheerleaders. So I
yep.
don't know. I don't know what that means. I'll just leave it to you to decide what to do with that information.
Yes. Oh, that's funny, Jess. Yeah, but to come back to your question, internalized versus externalized pressures. Externalized pressures to me feel like, okay, so I grew up in a small town in a very religious community. And we were very much taught from a young age, like, this is the way life goes. So those societal external pressures of like, you get married first, and then you have your family, and then your career, and like everything just falls. You get your house, whatever order we
Mhm.
were taught. And I remember getting to like And a lot of my friends got married young. So I remember getting to age like 22, 23, and I'm looking around and a lot of my friends were married and they were doing the life path. And then I looked at myself and I was like, wow, like you are not measuring up, Tiffany, you know? And I wasn't saying that to myself out loud, but my body was feeling that. And that led to disappointment in myself, honestly, like caving to those external pressures. But when I think about internalized pressures, I don't want to say it's just amplified for perfectionists, but I like to call myself a recovering perfectionist because it's something I really work on.
We
Oh
meet
my.
on Wednesdays. No, I'm just
I should have a group for it. I've like in the past 5 years really been learning to release a lot of that stuff because it causes me to be sick. That internalized pressure literally causes headaches and migraines and all of this stress response in my body, depression. Like it would lead me to so many areas of burnout and frustration and yeah, and so the biggest thing is, and I know it's not just this, but I feel like externalized pressures are something that come from someone else that like whether we've picked up from society, and made it our own, or even things that people demand of us and then we don't have the skills to say no, or we don't feel like we can say no, we're people pleasing or whatever. But the internalized ones are all of these bars that we set for ourselves, and mine oftentimes were so unrealistic. There was no room for failure. There was no room, and if there's no room for failure, there's no room for growth. Like, so it's like I have to do it this way, and yeah, a lot of not disease but dis-ease, in my body from that. So yeah, I don't know if I have too many more thoughts on that at this time, but yeah, there feels like a clear difference to me between the two, but I find the internalized has a bigger impact on my well-being than the externalized, but not always, I guess. Nothing's hard in black and white.
Yeah, I just love this topic. Like I wish we had like 5 hours to talk about it, but we'll have to do another episode. But um
Part B.
yeah, B, C, D, E, F. Excuse me. But yeah, so I guess a few like lots of things actually jumped out because I've also had similar like conversations with other people, but also yeah, with my own self too, like as I'm reflecting on stuff. And you said without something, there's no growth. Remind me
Oh,
with
without failure.
yeah, without failure, there's no growth. And that's what stuck out to me the most, right? Because it's like, yeah, when we have um external pressure telling us, yeah, this is the way things are going to be. And then it kind of like conditions us then to have the internalized pressure, right? Because it's like we take it on as, yeah, this is the way it has to be. And so even though it's externally, then we also get it externally, but it becomes, yeah, like you said, a part of our
Internalized.
internal too, right? Um, yeah, and I think open-mindedness or flexibility or like those are some of the things that come to mind when I think about managing expectations. Like, if I have these little preemptive plans, I guess that something is going to go a certain way and it doesn't, like how much that yeah really does affect me. And so I think yeah, like a while ago now, really having to let go of some expectations for someone really close to my life because that person couldn't show up in the ways that I needed.
Hmm.
And I mean, we still keep in touch and always respond to messages and phone calls and, reach out to them too sometimes, right? From time to time. But I guess it's like this idea or this hope of with that, um, like with that relationship, the hope of what it would be or what it could have been, I guess.
Hmm.
And then that kind of leads into this internalized dialogue of like, well, yeah, again, why, right? Like, who's to blame for that? Did I have a piece in that? And then, in cue all of this internal stuff. Um, but I guess the expectations I had created didn't allow any room for that person to be who they were too. And I'm not saying that either of us are in the wrong. Like, I'm not saying I'm a better person than that person. I'm not saying that they're a better person than I am. We're both ourselves and who we are and the things that we need. But I guess this idea of letting go of expectations and allowing people to like be who they're also trying to figure out who they're meant to
Mm,
be. Um, and I guess like what I maybe learned going through this was that I I want to say practicing empathy a little bit, like just kind of putting myself in like from their perspective, like and how yeah, like how that feels for them, like maybe their experiences also leading up to, our relationship. And um I guess what empathy means is, yeah, I guess that is what it means, right? Like kind of putting ourselves in other people's shoes and just seeing it from a different perspective. But we're all walking our own journeys, and I do actually believe that people are doing their best. Like I think I
yeah.
believe that because I have to, like I have
Mm,
to believe that people are doing their best. But yeah, and so I guess what I'm trying to what am I trying to ask? I'm trying to ask a question of like how how do we how do we set other people up to expect realistic things from us? Like how do we show up and be like, this is how I can show up in your life.
mm,
This is how I can be in this moment, in this job, in this whatever. And kind of like guide people, like maybe support people to guide them through that. I don't know. I don't know I don't know a clear way to say that.
mm.
So good luck in trying to figure out the question.
I was gonna say I'm not entirely clear what the question is. Let me see if I can paraphrase back to you, or like what I think might be saying. So like, how do we like communicate or set people up for what we expect or what the standards are for ourselves, or am I off the mark there? I'm not. I'm.
No, no, yeah, I think what I really am trying to navigate much for myself is like, how do I help you or whoever manage your expectations of me? Like, how do I guide that? Like, how I'm expected to show up, like in this space, or if I can do that, like, is it
Yeah.
entirely on you and your own expectations, or can I, can I guide you in what you can expect from me? Like, I don't know.
I just watch my whole body pull back and sit back in the chair. I feel like I'm in my wisdom stance. Yeah, okay, because I
All
just like
right,
trying
brace yourself. She's in her wisdom stance.
to watch out for what comes out next. No, I just like deeply reflecting. I guess I pulled back to be like, okay, what do I think about this?
Or like, what
Um,
the heck is she trying to?
well, something a chord struck in me first, so I'll just speak from like that. And it was like, well, we can't. Like we can't can we communicate what we hope?
Mhm.
Yes. But everything outside of that, is that even our lane? I feel like no. And that's where we need to then manage ourselves and like, find the words, Tiff. Yeah, that's like where we kind of need to manage ourselves and like, well, what do we want? So say, let me try to make this more palatable with an example. So say I go to whomever, Joe, and I say, Joe, this is, the last few times we went to go hang out, you came an hour late, and I'm really struggling with that because I really prioritize time management.
Mm,
And so, like, when I make plans to hang out with somebody, like, I value my time. And if you can't come, then, like, I think it feels like also a boundary riddled in, then perhaps I will also remove myself. Um, and then Joe's like, no, no, I can do that. I want to meet with you. It's important to me. next time rolls around, it doesn't happen. There's not much I can do. If I sit in that seat, and maybe this isn't where you're going with it, but like if I sit in that seat and I'm like, okay, Joe, we talked about this. We talked about what my expectations are and what I need. You told me you were going to be here. Like, what does that solve, really? It doesn't solve anything. Whereas, like, I think, I just think the words that are coming up for me are communication and boundaries. Like, I can communicate what it is I expect, but then I also need to know what are my boundaries if that doesn't happen, you know? Because I can't manage somebody else. Like,
Mm.
I have a hard enough time managing myself.
Yeah. That's a full-time job. I'm not putting in overtime.
No, and then I'm a mom, right? Which comes with some roles of maybe not needing to manage my child, but like show up and be super present in that space too. So I'm not sure if my example was clear, but like yeah, the two words that come up are communication and boundaries. Like yeah, I can let you know, but if you can't uphold that, no fault on you because like you said, everyone's walking their own path and they're doing their best with what they have, you know? But what do I need?
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. So I don't know if I fully answered your question, but that's where the wisdom stance took me. So
I was like, I don't even really know if I really asked you a question. So I think we're both also just trying to figure it out.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about like specifically those two things, communication and boundaries, but also, yeah, like the example that you gave, right? Like, I hope that the people I love most hold me to a standard, I guess.
Mm,
I'll go back to that standard word, right? Where, you know, if I wasn't kind or if I was like a friggin' negative Nancy or something all the time, like I hope that they would make a choice to have a firm boundary with me, right?
yeah.
And then I guess, yeah, like that there is this other end where it's like you expect me to do what? Like I have to do what now? Like, and so when I think about my commitments outside, like all of these ongoing commitments, because we don't only have one thing to do in our lives, right? Like
Yeah.
ensue the chaos, you know, where we have all of this stuff going on. Um, like one of the kids from the Rugrats said, I have responsibilities, you know, right? We have responsibilities. But, you know, I think sometimes in my life I did mislead people into holding me to expectations that I couldn't uphold, I
Mm,
guess. Like I think about specifically, when I would combat that feeling of loneliness with really unhealthy coping. And that was like, I kind of curated, I guess, this version of me. And then the people around me expected that from me. And then when I tried to affirm that boundary, it was harder, right? So I kind
mm.
of like set people up for like, yeah, this is how I'm going to show up. And I think the thing is that it changes, right? Like it always is going to change. Like how we can show up day to day is going to change. So I think that's the part where it's like, that's on you, right?
Yeah.
Like that's on you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just makes me think like I wonder if I do have a space to, yeah, like how to guide people, I guess, in like these shifts of expectations. But
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for like cuz that takes a bit of a different take and as you were talking like that really resonated for me like when I stepped into the new role that I held in my old job. I really wanted to perform and like I am a diehard performer achiever, right? So I wanted to perform. So yeah, when you were saying like you want to set people up for it's like for me it wasn't even like it wasn't from a malicious place or anything. It's like I really
mhm,
wanted to show that I had value, you know?
yeah,
Like we talked about self-worth a few weeks ago, but yeah, I wanted to show that I had value. But then when because you're right, that does shift. We're not the same person every day we wake up. There's different things that go on for us internally, externally, in different roles. And I think for me, with people pleasing being one of my coping strategies in the world, um, I feel an over responsibility when I shift, when in reality, I'm just allowed to,
Yeah.
and but that doesn't always feel true in the moment, especially when there's a lot riding on it, say my job, or like where there could be possible consequences that could have a really big impact.
Yeah.
Um, but I do know that when I don't allow that for myself and then I continue for other people's expectations, yeah, it again, the word that comes up is burnout. But so yeah, I don't feel like I can guide other people, but I would be really curious as you continue to reflect on that, what comes from that brilliance? Because yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And I do think like that communication is a big part of that, right? Like I
Yeah.
said, I am notorious for like making up like this is how exact oh, this is how I think this is going to be. And I'll map it out in my mind of like step by step by step by step by step by step, have it broken down and like the one, but I'm not like saying this, like I'm not telling anybody. And then the 1 minute where it's like, but we're gonna what? Like I already had this mapped out. Like you know that this is happening. Wait a second. Did I also not tell you that? Like so, I think communication is huge, right? Like it's
Yeah.
and then I do think that we have less control over it, where it's like I can communicate firmly what I'm looking for, what my needs are, what I expect. And then it is up to that person to, yeah, I'm just going to let them do what it is that they do. And then, yeah, maybe it does look like having to affirm a boundary, or maybe it
Mm,
does look like whatever, right? But, um, anyways, yeah.
yeah.
So I will take some time to think more about that. But yeah, I guess as we kind of like wind down for this episode on managing expectations or navigating expectations or reframing expectations, um, I'll have a final question. And so that is, I guess, if you could give someone some advice on how to manage expectations, and maybe not like a big, grand gesture. I don't think managing expectations is like a this is the right size fits all kind of thing. But if there was
Mm.
like one or two things that you could share, that might help someone do that, what would it be?
What jumps out to that question? Good question. And you were like, give advice. I'm like, oh no, I can't. I'm not well versed enough in this. Um, Maybe practicing flexibility, um, and maybe doing it with something that feels easy to shift yourself with, because I do think having expectations, like we're gonna have them, like that's just real life, right? But I think what causes a lot of maybe the suffering or the fallout after is not being able to pivot or not being able to be flexible and change and accept as well, kind of goes in there. But if you could practice flexibility and so as just an example, you go to the coffee shop, your order's wrong, just roll with it.
Mm,
You take it. Like just as a small example,
yeah.
because I get being flexible when it's something we have a lot of expectation on, that might not feel attainable. But yeah, practice flexibility. And what does that look like for you? What does flexible mean to you? Define it. Yeah. What about you?
Mm. Yeah, I think yeah, I really like that actual like you said, like it's a small example, but I think if we get more used to doing those things, small ways of being flexible, fall small ways of adapting, like
Yeah.
maybe we strengthen it, right? We always say the resilience is like a muscle. The more you use it, the more you move it, the stronger it gets. And so I think the same for many things, flexibility, adaptability. So I think that's a good reminder to practice it in small ways, and maybe I don't know, maybe it
Yeah.
won't also, but maybe it'll help in some of those really big moments, to kind of be flexible with expectations. For me, if yeah, I guess I think it would be more around like setting boundaries with
Mm,
expectations. Like I mentioned, I do tend to go to the standard things just because it's more measurable for me. Like it in my brain, it just makes more sense than like the expectation, because it's like I need to type 24 words in a minute or like whatever. It's like a really concrete thing. My brain loves concrete things, but yeah, like setting boundaries with expectations I think has helped. So when I feel some of that disappointment, it's like to really clarify for me, like, is this about what's happening, or is it about what I expected to happen and my emotional response to that.
Mm,
And even like asking that question sometimes is helpful. Like it just
yeah.
gives me a minute to like think about that, and then I can like, yeah, respond versus react kind of thing. So yeah, I think this has been, yeah, I think this has been a really awesome conversation. And like I said, I'm sure it could go like on and on and on. But yeah, I'm really glad that we could share some of these thoughts around expectations. Um, just to get it out there, right? So
Mm,
continue mapping some of this stuff for myself. Uh, so, for those tuning in, I do hope that you've been able to take something from this conversation. And yeah, if you're also navigating the world of expectations, just wishing you gentleness as you move through that as well. And as always, we do really appreciate every like and share and comment. And if there's someone in your life also who you might think would enjoy listening in or could benefit from some of these conversations, let them know. We're at Soulful the Podcast on all of our socials, and the links are here in the comments or in the description. And you can also, yeah, subscribe to our link tree so you get notifications and things over there as well. But anyways, lots of gratitude for this space and for each and every one of you. And until next time, stay soulful, everyone.
Thanks for tuning into Soulful. We hope you found something meaningful to carry with you on your journey. And if you enjoyed today's episode and want to show your support, we invite you to subscribe, share the podcast, and leave a review wherever you listen.
And if you're eager for more, you can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Soulful the Podcast for additional content and updates. Until next time, stay soulful.